1. The moment of sincere intention, niyah, every real change begins in a place no one else can see. Before actions shift, before habits break, before life visibly transforms, there is a quiet inner decision where the heart turns fully toward Allah. This moment of sincere intention is not loud or dramatic. It often happens in solitude, in exhaustion, or after disappointment. It is the moment when a person stops negotiating with their conscience and chooses truth over excuses. Niyah is not about perfection or confidence. It is about honesty. It is saying, I may not know how to do this well, but I want to do it for you. That sincerity alone carries immense weight because Allah looks first at the heart before He looks at deeds. A sincere intention reshapes motivation. Actions that once felt heavy begin to feel meaningful, even when they remain difficult. The same struggle, when driven by ego or fear, drains a person. When driven by niyah, it strengthens them. This is because intention aligns the heart with a higher purpose. Life no longer revolves around being seen, praised, or validated. It revolves around pleasing Allah, even when no one else notices. That shift changes how success and failure are measured. Success becomes effort, not outcome. Failure becomes a lesson, not an identity, because niyah also brings clarity. Many people feel lost not because they lack ability, but because their intentions are scattered. When intention is sincere, confusion begins to settle. Decisions become easier because the question is no longer what do I want right now, but what brings me closer to Allah. Even when the answer is painful, it brings peace. There is relief in knowing why you are doing something, even if the doing is hard. That relief is the first sign that Allah has accepted the direction of your heart. This moment of intention is also an act of humility. It requires admitting weakness, acknowledging past mistakes, and letting go of pride. A person who makes sincere niyah stops pretending they are self-sufficient. They recognize their dependence on Allah for strength, consistency, and guidance. This dependence is not weakness. It is spiritual maturity. It opens the door to divine assistance because Allah's help comes when a servant stops relying solely on themselves. Over time, sincere intention becomes a source of stability. When motivation fades, niyah remains. When emotions fluctuate, niyah anchors the heart. When progress feels slow, niyah reminds a person that Allah rewards effort, not speed. This is why small actions done with sincerity often outlast grand actions done for attention. The moment of sincere intention may seem insignificant to the world, but in the sight of Allah, it can outweigh years of empty effort. Choosing faith over comfort. Choosing faith over comfort is one of the most difficult and defining decisions a believer makes. Comfort appeals to the body and ego. Faith appeals to the soul. Comfort says, stay where you are. It's easier. Faith says a move, even if it hurts. This choice does not always involve dramatic sacrifice. Often it appears in subtle daily moments. Resisting a sin that brings temporary relief, waking up for prayer when sleep feels better, staying silent when the ego wants to react, or walking away from environments that once felt familiar but are no longer healthy. What makes this choice painful is that comfort is immediate, while faith is patient. Comfort rewards quickly but fades just as fast. Faith delays gratification, but its impact is deep and lasting. When someone chooses faith over comfort, they are not rejecting ease altogether. They are trusting that true ease comes from Allah, not from indulgence. This trust is tested repeatedly, especially when obedience feels lonely or when doing the right thing costs relationships, opportunities, or familiar pleasures. Choosing faith reshapes identity. A person begins to define themselves not by what feels good, but by what is right. This creates inner strength. The heart learns discipline, and discipline brings freedom. Without discipline, desires control a person. With discipline, a person controls their desires. This shift is uncomfortable at first because it disrupts patterns the nafs has grown attached to. But with time, the discomfort becomes less frightening, and the heart grows stronger. There is also a deep emotional aspect to this choice. Letting go of comfort can feel like loss. Old habits, friendships, routines, or dreams may no longer fit the path of faith. Grieving these losses is natural. Islam does not deny emotion. It teaches how to carry it without letting it lead. When faith is chosen despite emotional resistance, the heart expands. It learns that pain does not mean punishment and difficulty does not mean abandonment. Often it means elevation. Choosing faith over comfort invites transformation. Allah replaces what is left behind with something better, though not always in the same form. A person may lose social ease but gain inner peace. They may lose constant entertainment but gain clarity. They may lose validation from people but gain closeness to Allah. These exchanges are not always immediately recognized. Sometimes they are only understood in hindsight when a person realizes they are no longer who they used to be, and they would not want to go back. This choice also builds resilience. When faith is prioritized, trials no longer feel meaningless. Hardship becomes part of a larger narrative of growth and purification. The believer learns to endure without becoming bitter. They learn to wait without despair. Comfort teaches avoidance, faith teaches endurance. And endurance, over time, builds a calm confidence that does not depend on circumstances. Ultimately, choosing faith over comfort is choosing long-term peace over short-term relief. It is choosing alignment with divine wisdom over submission to impulse. Each time this choice is made, even imperfectly, it strengthens the soul. Life may not become easier immediately, but it becomes clearer. And clarity, more than comfort, is what allows a person to walk forward without losing themselves. 3. Leaving what displeases Allah. Leaving what displeases Allah is rarely a single clean break. More often, it is a gradual internal struggle where the heart learns to loosen its grip on what it once clung to. Sin and disobedience usually attach themselves to comfort, habit, or emotional need. That is why leaving them can feel like losing something familiar, even when that thing was harmful. The difficulty is not always in knowing what is wrong, but in having the strength to walk away from it consistently. This step tests sincerity because it asks for action, not just intention. What makes this process heavy is that many forms of disobedience promise relief. They offer escape from stress, loneliness, boredom, or pain. When a person decides to leave what displeases Allah, they are choosing to face their reality without numbing it. This requires courage. It also requires trust that Allah will replace what is left behind with something purer, even if that replacement does not arrive immediately. In that waiting period, the heart is trained to rely on Allah rather than on coping mechanisms that weaken the soul. Leaving disobedience exposes the true state of the heart. A person begins to notice how deeply certain habits were tied to identity or emotional survival. This awareness can be uncomfortable, but it is necessary for growth. Islam does not expect instant perfection. It honors sincere struggle. Each attempt to step away, even if followed by setbacks, is a form of worship when it is done with repentance and humility. The believer learns that falling does not mean failure, as long as they return to Allah without arrogance. As disobedience is left behind, even slowly, the heart becomes lighter. Guilt that once felt constant begins to ease. The mind gains clarity. There is a subtle dignity that comes from knowing you are no longer willingly betraying your own conscience. This dignity strengthens self-respect and deepens awareness of Allah's presence. Over time, sins that once felt irresistible lose their appeal, not because desire disappears, but because the heart has tasted something better. Peace without regret. This process also teaches patience with oneself. Leaving what displeases Allah requires honesty about weakness without justifying it. It teaches balance between accountability and mercy. A believer learns to dislike the sin without despising themselves. That balance is crucial because despair pushes people back into disobedience, while hope keeps them moving forward. Allah's mercy is vast, but it is experienced most deeply by those who keep returning, even when change feels slow. 4. Small changes made with big sincerity. Small changes are often underestimated because they lack visibility. They do not impress people, and they do not transform life overnight. Yet in the sight of Allah, small changes made with sincerity carry immense weight. A single prayer performed on time, a single sin resisted, a single moment of restraint, when no one is watching, can mark the beginning of lasting transformation. These changes matter not because of their size, but because of the heart behind them. Big change can be overwhelming. It demands energy, confidence, and consistency that many people do not yet have. Small changes, however, are accessible. They teach the heart discipline without crushing it. When a person commits to a small act for the sake of Allah, they build trust with themselves and with their faith. They learn that they are capable of obedience, even if it is limited. That belief fuels further growth. Sincerity is what gives these small changes their power. When an action is done purely for Allah, it reshapes the heart, even if the action seems insignificant. A sincere intention purifies effort. It removes the pressure to perform for others and replaces it with quiet consistency. This consistency is what transforms behavior into character. Over time, small, sincere actions stack upon one another, creating habits that feel natural rather than forced. Small changes also protect against burnout. When someone tries to change everything at once, they often collapse under the weight of unrealistic expectations. Islam encourages gradual growth because the human soul needs time to adjust. By focusing on small, manageable steps, a believer learns to move forward without resentment. Progress becomes sustainable. Faith becomes integrated into daily life rather than treated as a temporary surge of motivation. These small changes often go unnoticed by people, but they are noticed by Allah. That awareness brings comfort. A believer learns that they do not need to prove their transformation publicly. They only need to be sincere privately. This secrecy strengthens ikhlas and reduces dependence on external validation. Over time, the heart becomes less concerned with how change looks and more concerned with whether it is accepted. Eventually, small, sincere changes lead to visible transformation. Not because they were dramatic, but because they were consistent. A person looks back and realizes they are no longer who they used to be. Their reactions are calmer, the priorities are clearer. Their relationship with Allah feels more stable. All of it began with small steps taken seriously. In this way, sincerity turns simplicity into strength and gradual effort into lasting change. 5. The courage to walk a different path. Walking a different path requires a type of courage that is quiet but relentless. It is not the courage of confrontation or loud defiance. It is the courage of restraint, endurance, and solitude. When someone chooses a path aligned with Allah, it often separates them from familiar patterns, social circles, and expectations. Humans naturally seek belonging, so stepping away from what is common can feel like stepping into uncertainty. This courage grows when a person accepts that being right with Allah may sometimes mean being misunderstood by people. This path challenges identity. A person begins to ask difficult questions about who they are without external approval. They learn to stand firm, even when they are questioned, mocked, or gently pressured to return to what is easier. This pressure does not always come from enemies. It often comes from loved ones who do not understand the change. Courage, in this sense, is choosing conviction without bitterness. It is remaining kind without compromising values. Walking a different path also exposes inner fears. Fear of missing out, fear of failure, of loneliness, fear of regret. Faith does not erase these fears instantly, but it teaches how to walk despite them. Each step taken for Allah strengthens trust. Each moment of consistency proves that guidance is not fragile. Over time, the heart realizes that the path may be narrow, but it is steady. That realization brings a calm confidence that no crowd can offer. This courage reshapes priorities. Approval from Allah begins to outweigh approval from people. Success is no longer measured by popularity or ease, but by integrity. A person learns that even if the path feels slower or heavier, it carries meaning, and meaning gives strength. The courage to walk differently becomes a form of worship, because it is an active choice to honor truth over convenience. 6. Trading old habits for halal ones. Habits shape daily life more than intentions alone. Trading old habits for halal ones is not simply about stopping something. It is about replacing it. The human heart does not remain empty for long. When a habit is removed, something else must take its place, or the old behavior will return stronger than before. Islam recognizes this reality and encourages substitution rather than suppression. Old habits often form around emotional needs. They provide comfort, distraction, or a sense of control. When someone decides to trade them for halal alternatives, they are learning to meet those needs in healthier ways. This transition can feel awkward at first. New habits may feel less exciting or less familiar, but over time they offer stability rather than regret. What once drained the soul is replaced with what nourishes it. This process requires patience and self-awareness. A person begins to notice triggers and patterns. They learn when they are most vulnerable and what pushes them toward behaviors. Instead of responding automatically, they pause and choose differently. That pause is powerful. It marks the moment where discipline replaces impulse. Each time this choice is made, even imperfectly, the habit loses some of its hold. Halal habits bring balance. They do not demand constant intensity or emotional highs. They create rhythm in life. Regular prayer, beneficial routines, healthy relationships, and mindful use of time gradually reshape the day. These habits may seem ordinary, but they protect the heart. They reduce chaos and increase presence. A person begins to feel grounded rather than scattered. Trading habits also build self-respect. When someone keeps choosing what aligns with Allah, they begin to trust themselves more. That trust strengthens consistency. The struggle does not disappear, but it becomes manageable. Over time, what once felt forced becomes natural. The heart adjusts, desire shifts, and the believer realizes that they did not lose anything essential by leaving old habits behind. What they gained was clarity, dignity, and a life that feels aligned rather than divided.